Sometimes we have to go backwards in order to go forward, and this saying has never held more truth than when it comes to our agriculture. Our health and the health of the planet are deeply intertwined, and I hope by the end of this video, you'll see that for yourself. Our current common farming practices include monocrops, tillage, and high chemical usage, all of which is leading to degradation of our soils as well as not sequestering carbon. First, we till the soil, destroying any root systems in the ground and releasing tons of moisture and carbon dioxide into the air. Then, we spray the soil with pesticide, which kills the microbes in the soil that we need to build healthy soil. But it's not just killing the microbes. Pesticide is also killing off our bee population, which is responsible for pollinating 1/3 of all of our fruits and vegetables. Bees can be directly exposed to pesticides on sprayed plants, or they can carry contaminated pollen and nectar back to the hive, leading to widespread colony death. Even low doses can cause sublethal effects, such as impaired learning and memory, and some fungicides can increase the toxicity of insecticides when mixed together. Glyphosate, aka Roundup, is the leading herbicide used by farmers. Monsanto sold to Bayer in 2018. Does anyone else see the irony in Bayer buying Monsanto? First, they sell you the sickness, and then they sell you the cure. Maybe it's merely a coincidence that Bayer is one of the leading providers of a treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which, ironically, has been linked to overexposure to glyphosate. Glyphosate was invented to destroy life, so constant exposure surely can't be good. It's important to remember that your microbiome is made up of millions of microorganisms as well. Those microorganisms process everything you feed it. Glyphosate has been found guilty time and time again of making people sick. Here's a wild idea. Maybe if your product requires protection from the government against litigation, maybe it doesn't belong on the market. Just a thought. Due to the erosion of our soils, nitrogen fertilizer is needed for industrial farming, and the longer soil is treated this way, it only gets worse. Farmers require substantially more fertilizer now to grow the same bushel of grain that they could grow back in the 1960s. NASA used special cameras that show exactly how much CO2 is getting pumped into the air every tilling season, and, respectively, how much gets absorbed by all of our plants when they start to emerge in June. This process is called biosequestration. Biosequestration is the process where CO2 is captured from the atmosphere and stored in organic matter such as plants, soil, and oceans by natural biological processes like photosynthesis. Tilling and pesticide are hindering biosequestration. So it goes without saying that these things need to just be removed from the equation. Desertification is when soil turns to dust, releasing moisture and carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. Plants and trees pull water from the ground and transpire the water into the air and create rain. This is called the hydrologic cycle. Taking away the plants leaves you with nothing but a desert. 2/3 of our planet is already desertified. Every year, 4 million people are pushed off of their land because of desertification, leading a mass wave of immigration. It is estimated that by 2050, there will be 1 billion refugees as a result of desertification. If that's not scary enough, using current trajectories, all topsoil will be completely eradicated in 60 years. In order to avoid a climate catastrophe, reducing emissions is not enough. Drawdown is the only solution. So how do we do it? Regeneration. Regeneration is the renewal or restoration of a body or biological system, such as a forest. The very practices that will heal our soils will help solve climate change. Our soil is like a galaxy filled with millions of microorganisms that work synergistically with plants. And for every 1% increase in organic matter in the soil, an acre pulls 10 more tons of carbon. And there is hope. In the documentary Common Ground, you'll see examples of farms that managed to convert what was considered barren and hopeless into flourishing and biodiverse ecosystems. So we can stop wondering how to save this planet. That problem's been solved. They're doing it. The separation of animals and crops has led to a much less efficient and a much more toxic environment. Migratory buffalo used to shape the soil. However, colonizers came, and in an attempt to starve the natives, they killed millions of buffalo, and where those buffalo used to roam, there is now industrial agriculture. Hundreds of millions of acres of pesticides sprayed onto GMO corn, soy, and wheat. Mass feedlots for cows and chickens are both dirty and inhumane, and they do nothing to help trap greenhouse gas emissions. By using regenerative farming practices, cows can be good. They spread seeds with their hooves. Grazing makes the roots of the plant stronger, therefore creating more aggregate stability and more microbes, more soil, and more trapped carbon dioxide. They also fertilize the land. You don't have to eat them, but they are a necessity in maintaining great soil. Meat that is pasture-raised is high in healthy omega-3s, beta-carotene, conjugated linoleic acid, and high in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. And the same goes for their byproducts. You know, milk, cheese, and ice cream. On the flip side, factory farmed meat has high omega-6s. Excessive amounts of omega-6 fats have been shown to cause an imbalance that leads to chronic inflammation that can be associated with various health conditions, such as heart disease, cancer, autoimmune disorders, and diabetes. The question is not, can you afford to eat regeneratively? The question is, can you afford not to? Chickens tested the same. Those raised on pastures were higher in omega-3 fats, vitamin E, and beta-carotene due to the hen's diverse natural diet and exposure to the sun. Chickens aren't meant to live off grain. They like to eat insects, worms, and plants. Giving them this diet helps our own health, and it's so much kinder to the animal. So stop eating sad chickens. We emit over 40 gigatons of carbon dioxide a year. According to the Rodale Institute, by converting to regenerative practices, the soil can sequester it all. Currently, farmers plant 70% corn, soy, or wheat, and of that, 99% goes to animal feedlots. This is heavily subsidized by taxpayer dollars, with $25 billion annually going to these farmers. A USDA subsidiary is the Commodity Credit Corporation, which uses taxpayer dollars to subsidize the very crops that are destroying the soil and therefore the planet. There are 200 million acres of GMO corn and soy in America. Genetically modifying these seeds was necessary to help the plants withstand all the chemicals being sprayed on them. Farmers often go into debt to afford the GMO seeds, fertilizer, and pesticide, and herbicide, and insecticide, just to have crops grow barren from topsoil erosion if they get one bad weather event. In 2020, American farmers were $426 billion in debt. According to this senator, it is a morally bankrupt system and it needs to change. In the current industrial farm cycle, it's the government that dictates what gets grown. Then companies profit by selling chemicals and GMO seeds. Then the consumer gets sick. Farmers go into debt. The CDC found farmers 5 times more likely than the average American to commit suicide. Meet Rick Clark. Rick Clark converted to an organic, no-till, regenerative agriculture system and is now saving $400 an acre and no longer exposing himself and others to toxic chemicals. In the documentary Common Ground, he introduces the roller crimper and the air seeder as his means of producing these bountiful and sustainable outcomes. He has not taken a government subsidy since 2019 and no longer takes crop insurance. The chemicals used in industrial agriculture are not only toxic, but they're expensive in comparison to the free microbes that nourish our soil and help trap carbon dioxide. The ICDISIS Foundation provides the following rules for being considered a regenerative farm. Number 1, no tillage. Not tilling helps keep the moisture and the roots intact and the carbon in the soil where it belongs. Number 2, you must plant cover crops. A black slave by the name of George Washington Carver discovered that these cover crops naturally produce nitrogen. Peanuts, vetch, clover, beans, and black-eyed peas. Number 3, no chemicals. Do I really need to explain that one? Number 4, animal grazing. It keeps the plants healthier, the animal healthier, us healthier, the planet healthier, everyone's healthier. What's not to love? And by switching to regenerative agriculture, farmers receive these benefits. Water infiltration. 20 inches of rain per an hour can be absorbed by soil, so farms are less susceptible to heavy rainfall. They have less runoff. The cover crops also aid in runoff when there is heavy rainfall. Regenerative farmers make more than subsidized farmers, and they're not taking any money off the government. As for industrial agriculture, the taxpayer pays multiple times for this system. First, the federal government subsidizes the very food that makes us sick, which amounts to more taxpayer dollars being paid to treat the sick. Talk to your local representatives and ask that they stop subsidizing this toxic practice. Ask that if they are going to provide subsidies, that it be only to convert to regenerative farming. Some people fear that more land is needed to accommodate regenerative agriculture, but that simply isn't true. Vertical farms more than compensate for any extra land required, and they're able to produce year-round whilst being protected from the elements. Not caring is not the answer. Doing nothing will lead to more extreme weather. Floods, droughts, wildfires, all of which can lead to food shortages. Food shortages lead to acts of desperation, and you can only imagine what that will do to the healthcare system and what it might very well do to you. Stop thinking of yourself as an individual and start realizing that you are part of a greater whole. Love thy neighbor, as they say. And for all you climate deniers out there, allow me to introduce Observation A. Almost 2 million Americans have had their home insurance policies dropped between 2018 and 2023, while others have had their premiums increase. Homeowners and would-be buyers have suffered the most in California, Florida, and North Carolina. Insurance companies spend mucho dinero deciding how much to charge you in order to make a profit when disaster hits. So after doing all those little calculations, they still don't want to give you insurance? The future looks bleak. Observation B. NASA has a page dedicated to climate change. And yes, rocket scientists agree that climate change is real and we are the problem. If you would like to delve further into this topic, I have attached the links, so please, by all means, check them out. Now that you know that regenerative farming is not only better for you and the planet, your next hurdle might be, it's so expensive. And to that, I am going to say the one thing that might make you all turn against me. Consider eating less. I know, the truth hurts, But 73% of Americans are overweight, and 40% of Americans are obese. And considering that military, law enforcement, and firefighters all have strict weight requirements, this is a matter of national security. If you need a little inspo, this is Karl Lagerfeld. He is the epitome of glam, and he went from looking like this to like this, all before Ozempic. Obviously, with that weight change, I couldn't resist buying the book. But he did that with strict portion control. Consider switching your 3 eggs for breakfast to 1 and swapping out some of that protein for more plant-based proteins. Intermittent fasting has also gotten tons of accolades for health and longevity, but that's a whole other video. We'll discuss it later. I think it's important to remember that even if it costs more now, you'll be contributing to the change that is necessary. If you stop consuming their product, they have no choice but to change it. Do what's right for you, but drop the excuses, because remember, future generations' lives are at risk. And remember, if it's good for the planet, it's good for you too. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Ciao for now.